Let me ask you something. What if the solution to your biggest problem, the one that cost you money, time, and sleepless nights, was sitting right in front of you the whole time, hidden in the most unexpected person? Would you recognize a broken bar, or would you ignore it because it didn't come from the experts? This is the story of a single dad, a CEO, whose company was on the brink of collapse. He broken bar until his nanny, of all people, changed everything in just 30 seconds. And what he did next will leave you questioning how you see people in your own life. It all started in a small but growing tech company run by a man named Daniel. He wasn't just any Shaw, he was a father, and not just a father, but the single one. His wife had passed away suddenly when their little boy, Ethan, was only 3. Since then, Daniel's life had been a balancing act between being the leader of an ambitious startup and being the only parent his son had left. He loved Ethan fiercely, but truth be told, he always carried the quiet guilt that maybe he wasn't giving his son enough while pouring his energy into his company. And now that company, the dream he had built with his wife before she passed, was in danger. His team of 15 engineers had been working day and night for weeks on a project that investors were demanding, a revolutionary piece of software that could change the industry. If they could solve one critical flaw, millions of dollars in funding would come in. If not, a broken bar, the company would collapse, and everything Daniel had fought for would vanish. The problem seemed impossible. Lines of code looping endlessly, systems crashing unpredictably, solutions that made sense on paper but failed in practice. 15 of his best engineers had given everything, but nothing worked. Daniel was exhausted. He barely slept. Meetings with investors turned into apologies. Nights at home became hours at his laptop while Ethan tugged at his sleeve, asking, "Daddy, will you play with me?" And every time Daniel said, "Just 5 more minutes, buddy," those minutes stretched into hours. The only person who seemed to notice Ethan's loneliness was Maria, the nanny. Maria wasn't just an employee, she had been with the family since Ethan was born. Warm, practical, and endlessly patient, she became the quiet glue holding the house together. She cooked, helped with homework, and filled the gaps where Daniel couldn't. But what no one realized, and not even Daniela, was that Maria had a gift. One that had nothing to do with laundry or bedtime stories. One evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, papers scattered, head in his hands. Ethan had already gone to bed. Maria poured him tea and, with her usual kindness, asked what was wrong. Normally, Daniel brushed it off. After all, she wasn't part of the company. She wouldn't understand. But that night, something in her gentle persistence made him share the whole story. The bug that 15 engineers couldn't solve, the code that didn't work, the deadline that was crushing him. Maria listened quietly. Then, almost casually, she said, "Can I see it?" Daniel laughed. "Maria, a broken bar, it's complicated. It's not just a puzzle you solve over tea." But Maria wasn't joking. She explained that back in her home country, before moving to America, she had studied computer science for 2 years. She never finished her degree because life had other plans, but she remembered more than anyone knew. Surprised but desperate, Daniel showed her the program. She studied the screen for a moment, frowned, then tapped a few keys. "What if," she said slowly, "instead of chasing the error, you reframe the loop like this?" Her fingers danced lightly across the keyboard. 30 seconds later, the program ran a broken bar perfectly. Daniel's eyes widened. "What, a broken bar? What did you just do?" Maria shrugged as if it was nothing. "Sometimes, the problem isn't as big as people make it. Sometimes you just need to look at it differently." For a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe. 15 engineers, countless hours, endless stress, and the nanny had solved it in half a minute. He laughed, then cried, then laughed again, the weight of weeks lifting off his chest. That night, he didn't return to the office. He went upstairs, kissed Ethan goodnight, and held him a little longer than usual. The next morning, Daniel faced a choice. He could keep Maria's discovery quiet, let the engineers take the credit, and secure the funding, or he could acknowledge her brilliance openly, risking ridicule from investors who might not take Nanny seriously. But when he looked at Ethan over breakfast, he knew the answer. His son needed to see him choose integrity. At the next investor meeting, Daniel told the truth. He explained the weeks of struggle, the failed attempts, and then, with a smile, introduced Maria as the one who cracked the code. The room fell silent, and Nanny, but then Daniel ran the program live. It worked flawlessly. The investors erupted in applause, and when Maria shyly stood up, the room gave her a standing ovation. The funding poured in. The company was saved. But more importantly, Daniel learned a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. Genius doesn't always wear the title you expect. Wisdom doesn't always sit in the boardroom. Sometimes, it's folding your laundry or tucking your child into bed. From that day forward, Maria wasn't just a nanny. Daniel offered her a permanent role in the company's engineering team. She hesitated because Ethan still needed her, but together, they worked out a balance. She became a bridge between his home and his work, a living reminder that value can come from the most unexpected people. And Daniel, he changed too. No longer the dad who said 5 more minutes. He made time for Ethan, realizing that the company could survive a few deals but his son's childhood wouldn't wait. The company grew beyond what anyone predicted. But Daniel often said the real victory wasn't the millions in funding. It was the night he learned that listening, humility, and trust could solve problems no money ever could. So, if you're watching this right now, remember, the answer you're looking for might not come from the experts you hired or the titles people carry. It might come from the quiet voice in the background, the person you've overlooked, the one who sees the world differently. Don't underestimate them. Don't overlook them, because sometime as a broken bar they are the miracle you've been waiting for. Do you want me to expand this into a full 100-minute video script with detailed dialogues, scenes, and pacing cues? Like background music, emotion shifts. That way it can float like a complete YouTube storytelling video instead of just a long story.